Hi, I'm Keeley, also known as Kelly.
And I'm Feely, also known as Alex,
Welcome to our corner of the Shire,
where we will show you how to bring Middle Earth
into your daily life to keep you
a happy hobbit.
Welcome to this episode of Happy Hobbit. Autumn is in full swing here in the northern half of the hemisphere. And even though the leaves are turning colors on the trees and we're getting cold and crispy nights and rain showers here and there, it may surprise you to learn that this is actually a perfect time to start thinking about spring. A lot of people don't know that the fall is a great time to plant. This episode is hopefully going to be especially helpful for those of you who have always wished you had a green thumb and really felt like you didn't quite have one, or wanted to grow some flowers in a hobbity little garden, but don't feel confident in your knowledge of plant and floral care. Because guess what? There's a type of flower you can grow that is almost guaranteed to bloom and very hassle-free and easy. That is bulbs. I did mention other plants, and that's because if you want to grow a hardy perennial, then this is a great time to purchase one from the nursery and then plant it in the ground or in a pot, because it will give it time to establish its roots and really hopefully get a lot of moisture and a lot of nutrients and security in the soil before spring and summer comes. If you don't know what hardy perennial is, all it is a plant that lives its life cycle over more than 1 year. So an annual, as the name suggests, lives and dies in 1 year or less. And a perennial, in theory, with the proper care, will come back again, potentially again and again and again. And a hardy perennial is one that can take cold, because a lot of plants, unfortunately, will succumb to the damage that happens when you have frost or snow. And that is because the water molecules and probably various other molecules inside them, when they freeze, the ice actually creates damaging little splinters, like almost like little daggers, and it ruptures the cell walls, and so that's how frost damage occurs. I mean, you probably didn't need to know that, but now you do. What I have here is a pack of hyacinth bulbs. Look at the beautiful colors. We are not at all sponsored by Big Bulb or Dutch Bulbs or yep, this is grown in the Netherlands. But we're always open for partnerships with gardening suppliers. But so these are hyacinths. You may or may not have seen them growing before. I absolutely love them because they smell like a dream. They are just so fragrant. Sometimes in the spring you can get one in a vase in water, like the bulbs actually in a little bit of water, just the roots, or you can get one in a pot and they're just meant to have indoors. And if you can, I highly recommend it. They're very potent, but they're better than any candle. But pollinators love them. They add such a beautiful splash of color. So I'm gonna be growing some of these this year. And also a tried and true favorite that's sure to delight any Hobbit passerby, the classic daffodil. And I'm gonna show you how to plant these bulbs in a minute. We also have one very special bulb, and you'll find out why this one's special at the end of the episode. This is called a paperwhite. But flowers are not the only bulbs. Of course, there's a lot of fruits and vegetables that come in bulb-like form. So here we have white onions. These are also something great to plant in the fall and let them overwinter. As you can see, they just look like little curled onions inside the package. So these have grown for, I believe, 1 year to get to this size. And once the onions are biennial, so the second year of life is when they get focused on flowering and propagating. So you do want to harvest them the year that you plant them, if that makes sense, within that cycle. So if I plant these in the garden now in the autumn, I do want to make sure I harvest them before next autumn, because if they overwinter again, they'll just enter that flowering stage and they won't really be good to eat. But I also have some red onions and some yellow onions. If you're interested at all in growing any of these, I highly recommend you check your local nursery. This was $4.99 for 75 bulbs. That said, you do have to inspect them, check for mold, and kind of give them all a little squeeze. If they're mushy, probably not a good idea to actually plant it. So you usually won't get a full 75, but oh my goodness, that's a lot of onions. I don't know if I'd actually need that many onions anyhow. And the same goes for bulbs and other packaging. Always just have a little look. They usually have a clear background so that you can see, and give them a squeeze and make sure that they feel healthy. One thing you have to keep in mind when you're planting bulbs is to plant them into well-drained soil, because the bulbs can actually rot. So that's pretty much the only caveat that you have to worry about. So if you are planting them in a pot, just make sure it's got drainage holes that aren't going to get blocked. An easy way to make sure they don't get blocked is to just put some rocks or something so that the soil doesn't create a plug on the hole, and you should be good to go. There are a few things to look for when you are choosing varieties, and usually the packages will have it on the back. Of course, it's important to know your USDA hardiness zone. That's just giving you a rough estimate of the lows that your area goes to, so you want to make sure that whenever you're buying any plant that it can withstand the cold. Also, you need to make sure it can withstand the heat, but that's another subject. It'll usually tell you when it will bloom, so these will bloom in mid-spring. And it will tell you things like suitable for containers, ideal for cut flowers, great for rock gardens, winter hardy, good for borders and beds. And most bulbs, including these ones, require a chill factor, and all that means is they need a certain number of hours in the cold. That's why you plant them now before the winter, so that they actually get triggered to complete their life cycle and to send up shoots and to bloom. With all that said, let's get to planting. This tool is called a hori hori, and if you only can have one tool in the garden, which I don't know why you would, but if you could only have one tool, this is the tool you would need. It's got a serrated edge on one side. You can see the pointed tip on the tip, and it's just absolutely great for digging and getting through roots. The bed behind me has had a lot of plants in it over the years, so it's always fairly root bound, and something like this is invaluable for digging. As a general rule, you want to dig a hole twice as deep as the bulb. That said, certain bulbs do require different depths, and that information is all usually very readily available on the package. So look at how nicely that just cut through the soil and any potential roots that could be stopping up my hole. So I'm going to dig it a little deeper. This is nice sandy soil, so it's not going to get waterlogged. It's also a good idea to make the hole a little wider so that the soil around the bulb is loose. I'm going I'm going to select this one because it has already started. So have a look at this bulb. You'll notice that unlike the bulb I held up and showed you earlier, it's got a pointy shoot coming out of the bottom. to determine what orientation you should plant the bulb in. Here you can see some desiccated little roots. And right here is the pointy end. So you just stick them in the ground with the pointy end facing up. So for this guy, I'm gonna extra make sure that there's space on that side so that the shoot will come out and it will naturally know to just start growing upward. Nestle it in. Cover it up. Pat it down. You don't want to pat too hard because you do want some oxygen in there. But keep it safe. There you go. He's ready for his long winter's nap. This is my supervisor. Whenever my mom and I are gardening, she shows up, checks things out, makes sure we're doing an appropriate job. She's quality control. She'll even bat at hands as we weed. Good girl, Fluffers. One thing to consider when planting bulbs is what you want them to look like when they come up. So it's often advised that you plant them in groupings. You can even mix and match, have some tulips, have some daffodils, have some hyacinths, have some grape hyacinths or muscari, some narcissus, and create a beautiful... Oh no, there's a worm, I hope I didn't cut it. Create a beautiful splash of color in your springtime garden. But it's also important to, again, refer to the packaging and make sure that if you're hoping that the colors will all be on display at the same time with the different bulbs, that you have picked bulbs that flower at the same time. I've made that mistake more than once. Yeah. Where should I put this last one? Right there? Yeah, I can put it right there. You've picked the spot. We'll put it right here. Yeah. Fluffers. It'll be Fluffers' flower. Ah, kitty flower. Your kitty's flower. What do you think of that? What is this dragon in the garden? Who's this kitty? Did you pick where the bulb goes? I planted it right there, and it's gonna be Fluffers' flower, because she told me where to put it. She's a really good supervisor. Aren't you, Kitty Poo? And that's pretty much all there is to it. You dig, drop, cover it up, water it from time to time, and all of the nutrients and sustenance that the flower needs is already contained in the bulb. That said, there are bulb fertilizers that you can buy. I don't really depend on those, but if you want to extra ensure that your flowers have everything they need, they're another resource you can turn to. Interesting rumor about daffodils, and I'll call it a rumor, even though others insist that it's fact, is that daffodils are an excellent gopher deterrent. And so people will often plant a ring of daffodils around fruit trees and other plants that they want to protect. I met a woman from higher up in my mountains who said that she planted them all as the border of her garden bed, and that even after she stopped using it as a garden bed, she would still get this beautiful fairy ring of daffodils, and that it worked for her. I think we've got super orc Mordor gophers where I live, because they eat everything they're not supposed to eat. So I don't trust that they won't eat my daffodils as well. So I consider that when I plant them, and that's part of why I got this bag with 40. And you plant them exactly the same way that I planted the hyacinths. Dig, drop, and let nature do its thing. Earlier, I told you that this bulb is special, and now it's time for me to tell you why. This is a paperwhite narcissus, and I don't know enough about it to know if it has been bred especially to not need the chill hours, but it's one that you can grow indoors and that many people grow to have as a Christmas or Yuletide or midwinter display. I don't know if my timing is such that that's actually going to work out, but last year I did successfully grow it as an indoor bulb and had beautiful fragrant white narcissus flowers that look like little mini daffodils to enjoy in the winter. This is the pot I used, just a plain terracotta pot. As you can see, I really half-heartedly, pathetically put some foil on it while it was in the house to try to make it look more festive. Didn't block up the drainage hole. I did not take good care of the bulb I had last year. I'm pretty sure it's dead, but we're gonna find out, and if it is dead, I'll just replace it with the new paperwhite bulb I have. Should always have a soil receptacle on hand so that you make slightly less of a mess. Whoop. Okay, we're gonna get a bottom side view. Oh, look at that. That's fascinating. So these bulbs, all bulbs, actually, because they're alive, want to propagate. This is how a bulb propagates. Look. This is the main bulb. This is one of its children. This is another very robust looking one of its children. Wow. The main bulb itself also feels like it might still be alive. Whoops. So what you can do is what I just inadvertently did. You can divide bulbs up like that. Boy, it's an experiment. This feels really desiccated, but it might come back because they basically go into hibernation. As an experiment, I'm gonna try having 2 of these paperwhites going. So I just went ahead and got some fresh soil. So I'm gonna put just like a handful or 2 at the bottom of a pot. Same with this. These terracotta pots you can get at garden centers. They're really quite cheap. I think this was like under $5. They last a long time, and when they do break and fall apart, they tend to shatter into chunks. Those are called crocks, and you can use them to cover the drainage holes, as I was explaining earlier, so that you won't get clogged pots. So I don't know if this is advised, but I'm just sticking these guys, sticking them in there. And you want to cover it with soil. Cover it with soil and eventually give it some water and you're done. So set that guy aside. Get my fresh paperwhite. Nestle it in. Then I'm just going to gently layer the soil around it. And it's okay if its green shoot is peeking out. It's okay to fill with soil to the brim of the pot because once you water it, it is going to compact the soil down and it won't be quite as full. Once you have your paperwhite planted, give it a good drink of water, let it all drain, and then find somewhere to store it. I know this is going to sound weird, but find somewhere to store it where it's cool and dark. So there's a high shelf in my garage where I forced mine to grow last year. You're not forcing it in a mean way, as far as I know. It's just messing with its growing conditions. But like I said, I'm pretty sure the bulb has already been messed with. I should know more about this, but I don't. But anyway, you can just trust me because I've done this once before. That makes me an expert. For 2 to 3 weeks, you're going to have the bulb and water it every few days. Check the soil. If it's damp, no need to water it. Again, you don't want to rot your bulb. But if it's not damp, then give it a little bit. Have it on a plate or a saucer, something that can absorb any excess moisture. And then after 2 to 3 weeks, it should start growing. And it's gonna look kind of weird because it's gonna be very pale. And at that point, you can move it so that it gets more sunlight. Now, sorry, there's ants all over. Apparently they were in that bag of soil that I drew from. But now, one of the things to consider is the timing. Everywhere you read, I shouldn't say everywhere, it will tell you that it will bloom in 4 weeks. So a lot of people will just do the math and say, well, I want this as a part of my Christmas celebrations. And so I'll plant it 4 weeks before Christmas. I have found those general guidelines about everything with gardening to not be true. I don't think there's a conspiracy at heart, but I think that those are under ideal circumstances, and most of us don't have ideal circumstances. So we're still several weeks away from Christmas, and I'm gonna plant it anyway and just see what happens. Whenever it blooms, I will be happy. In fact, if it blooms, I will be happy. I'm pretty easy to please. Many of us find winter to be a challenging season, and if that's the case for you, I do highly encourage you to try planting some bulbs. When they pop up in the spring, and yes, they will pop up even if it's snow, it will just bring so much joy and cheer to your heart, and hopefully leave you a very happy Hobbit. Thank you so much for watching, and please be sure that you are subscribed and hopefully also follow us on social media. I am going to be tracking the progress of the growth of these bulbs, in particular the paperwhite, as it emerges from the soil and hopefully blooms. So the updates will be right here on our channel and probably in reels and fun stuff like that on our social media. I guess that's it. Thanks, and enjoy this clip of Pappy Hobbit just being Pappy Hobbit while I was filming. Being invaded by turkey folk.
Sorry, you were there a minute ago.
That's okay, that was great!
This could be a YouTube hit.
Yeah! It's getting crazy around here, Fluffers. Can't work under these conditions. Dad running, blowing raspberries to chase them. These bulbs, especially the narcissus, the paperwhite, but most likely with my phone rather than this camera. So you can get updates by, like, yeah, hanging out with us. That came across really weird. That's okay. Oh wow. See, this was $30 for 30 bulbs. I think anything over $10 is expensive, so don't ask me if that's a fair price, but I think that's actually probably a really good deal.